Sweet.
Everybody, welcome back to the Insiders Lounge. Today we have another special guest, Nate. Nate, thanks for coming on, and feel free to give everyone a quick introduction about yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. We're excited to be here. I'm Nate Winkle. I'm currently based in Denver, Colorado, and am the president of North America at PlayerMaker, although that's only been my title for the last couple of months here, so new role for me. But if we sort of go way back to the beginning, I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, playing a lot of soccer and a lot of ice hockey, actually. Then sort of started to focus on soccer in junior high and really get into that. Earned a Division I scholarship, ended up graduating from Marquette University back in 2000. Got drafted into what was then the A-League and is now the USL Championship. Bounced around to a few teams in the US and in Sweden, played in the second division over there. And then sort of randomly but happily found myself in New Zealand in my late 20s recovering from a sports hernia operation, which was an amazing experience. And I ended up finding my now wife, Rachel, when I was down there. She happened to be American and traveling down there. So, and was coming to the end of my soccer career in my own head at that point in time. It was like, I've been doing this for a while. I haven't made it to, I wasn't playing at MLS and money wasn't that great back then. Like, what am I going to do next? And sort of fell in love with a girl and fell in love with the country of New Zealand. So I stayed there. And we had then a brief stint in Shanghai, and then we spent a year in Shanghai, and then we came back to New Zealand. And when I came back, and I worked a little bit in finance, but when I came back, it was like the early 30s and had the opportunity to be the executive and technical director at what's now called Olay Football Academy, and basically started from scratch this program, which the goal was to send U.S. players to university on scholarship. And that came from a player that I had played with professionally. He was named Mike Wilson. He went to Stanford. His father loved that experience and wanted to give more kids like his son that opportunity. But that started super small. Like that's like me and a handful of kids doing some like technical skills training like on a field. And then eventually grew into, and it still exists today, a place that has produced a kid that just scored in the Champions League like the other day actually for Red Star Belgrade. So that was an amazing learning experience and fun. And I had to make a lot of decisions around technology in my role as executive and technical director at the academy over those like 6 years or so. And when my wife and I decided that we wanted to have kids and come back to the United States, as opposed to staying in that sort of academy player development role, I decided to switch into sports tech. And then over the last 10 years, I've been with a handful of companies, BX Sport, Catapult, most recently Speedio, and now the change to PlayerMaker, and really sort of helped foreign companies grow and scale their sports tech businesses here in the United States. So
that's great. That's one of the better introductions we've had here. But to start,
certainly a lot of countries.
Yeah, that's it. A lot of traveling. And we'll get into that later. But starting right at the beginning, what were your first kind of football, soccer memories, and where did you get inspired to start playing soccer? Was it through your parents or someone in your family?
Yeah, no, like a lot of American kids, I started I'm sure a flyer came out to like home to my parents from my kindergarten class, and I signed up for a bunch of sports when I was young, but I did gravitate towards soccer. Had some good, friends and early coaches. I mean, this is early 80s, so it wasn't like soccer was still growing and not anything like it was today. But had some really good early experiences. And then we lived across the street from a soccer field when I was in junior high. And that's when I sort of stopped playing ice hockey and got into soccer a lot more seriously. And I was really fortunate in that regard that there was a bunch of men's league teams with a bunch of foreign guys that were really passionate about the game, that were good players, saw that I had a bit of talent and really sort of took me under their wing. So I could just pop across the street basically every night of the week when I wanted to and hop into practice. And whether that was with a youth team or a senior team. And like I said, there was a pretty international flavor to the group of teams that used to train over there. So I just started playing every single day around 12 or 13 years old and sort of, fell in love with the beautiful game, as they say.
That's it. And then you ended up graduating, like you said, from Marquette, and you ended up going pro. How long was your pro career?
What is it, like
Now I'm making
seven,
you
eight?
think back.
Yeah, 7, 8 seasons in the end. Lots of teams
And
during
then
that period.
what were your like biggest learning experiences throughout that time that you kind of still take on to this day and you thought, oh, that was a really good experience that I can take on and move forward with it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I look back on from my playing experience that try to take on to today is to like leave the ego out of things. I was really small, like as a kid. So, like freshman year in high school, 14 years old, there's like a newspaper article about it that's titled like Winkle is a small man on a big mission. And I was 4'10", 78 pounds as like a 14-year-old kid
Wow.
as a freshman, playing varsity soccer as a freshman in high school. So I heard a lot, especially starting in high school, from a lot of people like, you're too small, you're never going to make it. And that started a bit of a fire in me, which has probably led to a lot of like the success that I've had. But there was also a bit of like defiance in there. I don't think if you go back and talk to like my old coaches in particular from high school all the way through to being a pro, I wasn't the guy who was like showed up like eager to learn. I was trying to prove something all the time. And I was small and I wasn't super like athletic, and I really leaned into like the attacking side of the game, and I was pretty technical and wanted to get on the ball and do things. And I heard from the time I was 14 until the time I was, my mid 20s, when it started to dawn on me, like maybe I need to start listening basically to the coaches a bit more. And I was pretty sort of intent on doing it my own way. And I think I was pretty technical, that I made it that far based on some of the things that I was good at. And I didn't embrace the things that I wasn't good at. I wasn't like working hard on my fitness. I wasn't getting in the gym early in my career. I wasn't embracing the defensive side of the ball. I did the stuff that I liked and kind of tried to be really good at that. But there were so many people around me that in hindsight I could have learned from. So the biggest thing that I look back on is just that, like, and literally like every interaction, even when it's a terrible interaction, you can learn something from. Every person that you interact with, even if they have nothing to do with like your career, your interests, if you take like an open mind into it, I've realized that like you can really learn something like all the time, every day. And I didn't have that attitude as a player. And if I would have, I think I would have been like much more successful. So that's probably like the biggest learning that I took from my career, is to be really open-minded and curious.
Yeah. And then, so then you ended up moving to New Zealand. You met your wife there. Now you have
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
I love always asking the question, what are your keys to kind of a work-life balance where you're balancing between your family and work throughout kind of your early career and still to this day?
Yeah. So as a player, there was no work-life balance. I think that whether I realized it or not, like my life and the people's around me life, like revolved around my career. It was pretty uncompromising. Like I do this when I need to do it. I missed a lot of weddings, missed a lot of family events, and didn't think too much of it. So when it comes to work-life balance, then, the decision specifically to sort of leave the academy, that was an amazing job, but it was like all day long, every day. I had kids, 16-year-old kids that have moved away from their parents up in Auckland to come down to Wellington, where we were, that I needed to take care of, like academically, socially and athletically. And when I had kids, I didn't want to have that response. I knew I couldn't be the husband and the father that I wanted to be if I was putting that much into my work. So I made a pretty drew a line in the sand and sort of said, like, I'm only willing to work and use so much of my sort of energy on a daily basis, like at my job. And I really want to make sure that I'm a good husband and a good father. Or my definition of a good husband and a good father, which meant spending more time on it than I would be able to if I was doing the sort of job that I was doing in New Zealand at the academy. So I think a lot of it is about like figuring out like what your values are. And then, sort of building a life around that. And for me, it was like work is an important part of it, but I didn't want it to be all of it. And there's nothing wrong with guys. I know lots of guys who I interact with them every day in my job who work tons and are still great fathers. They find a way to make it work and are great husbands. Everybody's got to make their own choices. But for me, I wanted to have a little bit more of a 9 to 5. And that's why I got into sports tech as opposed to sticking to coaching, basically.
Right. And then we spoke a little bit about your travel. So I remember reading through your LinkedIn bio. So you've done scuba diving in the Great Blue Hole, cliff jumping in Mallorca, all these different places.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite experiences that you've had?
Favorite experiences? Well, New Zealand is like paradise, basically. Like if you ask me, the country is beautiful. You're never more than 2 hours from the ocean anywhere in the country. There's really dramatic sort of geography, and that's why a lot of the movies are filmed there, like Lord of the Rings and things like that. You know, there's glaciers inside rainforests, and places to scuba dive inside volcanoes, and like stuff you can only find sort of in New Zealand, basically, and also close together. And I spent a lot of time there, but like that's the place that I always recommend for anybody to go, and I think is like sort of my most memorable, fondest experiences. And not only is it so beautiful there, but like, the police don't carry guns. The people are really nice. The wine is great. The food is great. The beer is great. There's so much to do. I learned how to surf there, which is something that I like, that I love to do. So I think New Zealand has so much to offer as a country, and the people there are amazing as well. So.
And do you think your travels has helped benefit now where you are in your career, kind of expanding into new markets and helping people on a worldwide basis?
Totally. I think that like now, and the roles I've had in recent years, like in a leadership role, that it's really important that you're curious, basically, and open-minded. And travel is something that's great for that. I think the sort of desire to learn new things, experience different cultures, is something that is a trait that goes well with being a leader. I think if you sort of think you have it all figured out, then it's almost sure that you don't. And the world moves so fast today that even if you have it figured out today, like something's going to change tomorrow for you. So I think that, getting out and meeting different people, seeing different parts of the world provide, lots of inspiration for new ideas, to question the way you're doing things. It's something that I really enjoy just for the sort of like social benefits from it. But I definitely think professionally it's like impacted my ability to do my job well, for sure, in a positive way.
Definitely. And so now you're at PlayerMaker. Give anyone who's listening that maybe has no idea what it is, give an introduction on what you guys do.
Yeah. So PlayerMaker is a foot-worn wearable tracking solution. You strap with a small rubber strap to each of your shoes a little sensor that has, accelerometers and gyroscopes in it that are able to measure tons of information, specifically physical performance information. So how far you run, how fast you run, how many times you've turned, how intense those turns were. So it's similar in that way to like a GPS solution, the vest that you see lots of guys wear with a little pod in the back. But then on top of that, it delivers a bunch of technical information. So how many times you've passed, how many times you've shot, how fast those shots were, how much time you spent on the ball, what surfaces of your foot you're touching with it. Is it the laces? Is it the inside? Is it the outside? And it's doing it those on both feet at the same time. So it's a very one-of-a-kind solution, which is one of the reasons why I was interested in joining the company. In addition, we just got FIFA approved. So like on the physical side, we're approved to be just as valid and accurate as in terms of a physical tracking solution as lots of the GPS. But then since it's on both feet, even from a physical perspective, we can do some gait analysis stuff for elite teams that a lot of like the Premier League teams and Champions League level teams that are using our stuff in Europe use it for. But then you take it down to youth level. And I coach my 8-year-old son at Colorado Rush's like academy program, and he wears it and his team is wearing it. And I get tons of great like technical insights that I use on a daily basis, or like every time that we're practicing, I'm looking at that data. The kids love looking at the data. So it's a pretty amazing company, and they were pretty brave to do it. And I myself saw the company 4 or 5 years ago when it started, 4 years ago when it started, and started seeing stuff. No one's going to strap. Like, who wants to wear this like rubber strap on their foot? Like, what's up with that? Like, that's no good. And then I got approached for the job and learned a little bit more. And so they were pretty brave. And some people thought stupid to do it in the beginning. But I think the amount of teams that are using it now, the FIFA validation, has shown that like there's really some unique insights and unique value that you can deliver. And the straps are, we got all kinds of pictures and all kinds of clubs. And I was actually quite pleasantly surprised to learn, because I think there's a big opportunity in the youth market, but I'm quite pleasantly surprised to see the Aston Villas that you mentioned, have signed on, or Marcelo even wearing it down with his club down in Brazil at the moment. So and I've tried it on myself, and it actually, you don't really feel it that much, like in the end. So
right. And then before we kind of get into your role and some of the other things with PlayerMaker, you've had similar roles in the past with other companies in sports tech, but in different parts of the industry. Can you touch on those a little bit and just what knowledge you've brought from those now into your current role?
Sure. So the journey was, we're moving from New Zealand back to the US. I did some basically like consulting to help VX Sport, which was a New Zealand-based GPS solution, come to the US. And then Catapult, which was sort of like, VX was a little bit of a smaller, like startup company, like a good company. But Catapult was sort of the beast in the space. They're publicly listed, had more staff, more money to invest. And they approached me with a job, and I went across and did that for a bit. And that was cool because when I did the consulting for VX Sport, I really leaned into my own soccer network. So we did a bunch of deals with college soccer teams and some pro soccer teams. When I went to go to Catapult, they're like, you're going to have the Northeast part of the country, and you're going to do all 5 major pro sports. So that meant like I was selling to NFL, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, and Major League Soccer. And then I did a lot of work in the SEC and the ACC. So my time there, I spent time with Alabama football and Clemson football and New England Patriots and, different NBA teams. And so it was awesome to be in those like really high level environments. And this is back in the day as well, where like it wasn't a super formalized sales process. It was more like, here's the units, like go figure out how to make us some money. But as part of that, then like our travel budgets were big. Like we got on a plane and like took people out to dinner and spent the whole day at a facility. Like if I went to go, now a lot of it's all done over Zoom. But back then it was like, oh, the Philadelphia Flyers are interested in Catapult. Okay, I'm flying to Philadelphia for like 2 days and might be on site with everybody from like the GM to the strength and conditioning coach to like putting the sports bras like on the players myself over like a 2-day period. So that was like amazing sort of learning experience at Catapult, and worked with some really good people, including Brian Kopp, who is sort of like how I ended up. He was the president at Catapult, and is basically how I ended up with PlayerMaker, because he's involved in one of the investment groups that got in. And then came Speedio. So then I went from Catapult to Speedio. Speedio is a Swedish company, really innovative technology. They do AI-powered cameras that don't require a cameraman, fixed solutions, mostly. That went into stadiums and training facilities, give like a panoramic view. And I joined that company like 5 years ago now, when it was 10, 12 people and a few $100,000 a year in ARR, no employees in North America. And there I was part of the senior management team, like from sort of day one, because there was only 10, 12 people in the company. There was like, sort of 3 of us in the beginning. And over that 5-year period, we grew to have like a streaming solution, data solutions, instant replay solutions, did, multi-million-dollar streaming deals, and grew the company to well over, 100 employees and like tens of, sort of millions in revenue. So that was an amazing sort of journey to be moved from just someone who was sort of selling stuff to be involved in the actual senior level and strategic decisions across like, the entire company. So that was like an amazing 5 years, and really good, smart people there. And I think Speedio still has like a really bright future ahead of them, like sweet technology, right technology in the right space at the right time. So.
No, that was perfect. And then, so now you're the president of North American operations with PlayerMaker. What is your day-to-day like? Because most people will see that title and you sort of have an understanding, but you don't actually know what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sort of depends, different for different companies at different stages. Where we're at in North America is basically the company made a decision that sort of on the back of the World Cup being co-hosted here in 2026, Messi coming to here, this is Wrexham, just sort of seeing where North American soccer is headed, that they wanted to make it a big focus for the company moving forward. There's been a lot of good progress at PlayerMaker via this partnership we have with Manchester City called CityPlay. So that's like an individual solution that you can go and just buy on Amazon or direct from our website for players. And if you're in this space, you might get sort of Facebook ads for that. But it's also a team solution. And that's actually how it started out, was as a team solution before we had this like CityPlay. And so at the moment, my main sort of responsibility is building out the team. So we have 4 open roles at the moment: a marketing role, a couple of sales roles, and a customer success role that we're hiring for. And those roles are all more focused on team sales. So from sort of pro level, like all the way, with first team MLS teams that are using our stuff a lot of times for player rehabilitation, using some of that gait analysis, all the way down to youth teams like my son's team that I'm coaching, that are coaching like a group of 7, 8-year-old boys that now think it's the coolest thing ever that they can see how fast they run at each practice. So we're pretty bullish on where Player Maker can go, specifically in North America, on individual and team sales. But for the next 6 to 12 months, my job is to figure out the strategy and hire the right people so we can start to sort of bring this value to the North American market.
And then I saw a few articles with the Rugby World Cup happening that you might be looking to expand into other sports now. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we've made a decision that we want to stay focused on soccer, in the short term. So you're not going to see anytime over the sort of next, definitely 6 and maybe even 12 months, a big push for us into other sports. But there is, like I said, they were sort of, I think initially people thought oh, that's crazy. You're going to stick something on somebody's foot. No one's going to wear that. And now people are interested in it. So it's not just, I won't sort of go into too much more detail, but it's not just rugby, but there's quite a few other sports that have reached out to us. And in the background, we're testing some things there. And one sport in particular that's not rugby, we're pretty optimistic on, actually. And I think that would be the next sort of venture that we do. So, yeah.
Cool. No, that was good. And then we'll get into some of these are, I call them the Insider's Lounge favorites. It's kind of a selfish thing. It's more, I want to hear truly from you, your opinion on certain things. Right. So your first thing is just, did you have a thing that you look back on that was your biggest challenge throughout your career or life that now you look back day to day and it kind of motivates you? So I know you talked a little bit about your size growing up, that was a big thing. Is that kind of your biggest motivational factor?
No, I think so coming from a sports world and being an athlete, and I think there's probably a lot of people here listening that could, sort of relate to this. I actually think the toughest thing is transitioning from playing, because you're really, playing didn't feel like a job. Yeah, I didn't get, sort of make as much money as I thought I was going to do it after it, but still from 21 until 28 years old, I woke up, got to play the game that I fell in love with at a young age, hang out with a bunch of guys that are doing the same thing, do that in the morning, go have lunch in the afternoon, take a nap. I used to nap every day, and life was pretty easy. So, and then even if you're playing at a relatively lower level, like I did, most people think it's, what do you do for a job? I'm a professional soccer player. Oh, that's pretty cool. You get a lot of sort of positive reinforcement, and it becomes, I think, a big part of a lot of people's identity that are become professional athletes. So trying to figure out what to do next, I think is really tough for a lot of people, actually. And the thing that I would say is to people, and now I've dealt with that a lot, get that question or see people that are transitioning out, is I think you just need to start to prepare for it earlier. It's going to happen, and it happens. And it actually has nothing to do whether you play 2 years of minor league soccer where you're sort of barely making enough money to get by, or whether you make millions of dollars and have a 15-year career. It's going to end if if you live till 70. Not that many people, even the Ronaldos of the world these days, aren't playing past 40. So I think as fun as it is, and as much as you want to sort of put everything into it and make the most out of your career because it's short, and you look over your shoulder, and this guy that I used to play with, we were only making $100,000 a year, and now he's in Germany making $500,000. I want to be that guy. I think there's so much of that goes around, as opposed to trying to be so single-minded, which I think is valued a lot, and even pushed by coaches, even college coaches sometimes. I think there's sort of a responsibility for me in hindsight for the entire soccer community to yes, soccer is an amazing game. I love it. It's been a huge part of my life, but it's going to come to an end. And how can we start dedicating a little bit more time and resources for everybody in the process, so that this transition becomes a little bit easier? Because I think a lot of people find it really tough.
And then you touched on a little bit of advice there for people, but if there's someone listening that kind of wants to follow a similar pathway, whether it's pro or building into a sports tech industry, Do you have advice for people that want to follow that similar pathway?
Definitely. And I deal with this like all the time now. And so, as I just mentioned, it's tough to figure out what you want to do when you got done playing. But when you have the opportunity, and you might be thinking to yourself, like, maybe I want to coach, or like maybe the business, maybe sales is interesting, but maybe support it, like the support side, like whatever, marketing, like there's a lot. And I'm not saying that you have to have the answer, but if you do get the chance as you're exploring that to hop on the phone with somebody about a job, you need to like, you can't say that. You can't say like, oh, I'm still thinking about coaching, or I maybe like marketing, or I maybe like sales. If you don't know, if this isn't like a close friend of yours, if it's basically like a job interview, you need to come into that and say like, no, I want this job in sales. You can always turn it down. Like if you don't want it to be, you need to present like you have an idea where you want your life to go. If you come in and you tell me that you have no idea what you want, like I'm not going to want you in my organization, because I don't want somebody that quits after 3 months because they get a coaching job. And I think that's cooler than the sales or marketing or customer success job that they just had. So I think that that's a big thing, is like when you get a chance to talk to somebody about whatever it may be, like you need to sort of be acting like you're going, like you're interested in that you're not questioning what you're doing. And then I think once you've decided that, like, can you come in with some clarity around what you're going to bring to the table? Like it's a good starting point to say like, yeah, I'm really interested in sales. But I think this like old way of preparing for a job interview by maybe like looking at some questions about what are my strengths and weaknesses and things like that. Like that's not how I advise people to prepare for those sort of conversations, or how I prepare for it. I come at it from the perspective is like, what am I going to bring to this? This company has listed in a job description, or I think I'm having a conversation with, so this is what I think their company needs, and this is what I think I can bring to the table. So like have those bullet pointed down. And it's almost like no matter what question gets asked to you, come back to that. So it's not sort of an opportunity for them to ask questions for you as it is as much for you to tell them why they should hire you, because like A, B, and C, I can do A, B, and C for you, and I'm really confident in it. I think that's my biggest advice to people that are transitioning out, because I have way too many conversations with people that I think are smart, nice people that will eventually sort of like be successful, but they just don't, they've been playing soccer so long that like they don't know how to present themselves. They hop on the phone and think it's like some sort of casual conversation basically, and haven't really thought about what they can do for the company that they're talking to. So.
And then I want to split the next one into kind of a two-part question, because we're talking a little bit about PlayerMaker and yourself. So if we sat down to have the same conversation in about 5 to 10 years, where would you be personally, and where do you think PlayerMaker will be if you're still with them at the time, let's say?
Okay. Something I struggle with is staying present. So like, I think that I've made a pretty concerted effort actually to not put too much thought like into these kind of questions, because my life has taken all kinds of like different twists and turns. And I feel like I'm so much of a better professional, husband, father, like all those things when I am sort of present in the moment. So I'll start with saying that, but I don't want to dodge the question. So if we take from me personally first, I think that, I'm not looking for any sort of drastic changes from where I'm at now. Like I'm in love with my wife, my kid, Rachel, and Adler, my son, my 8-year-old son, and Nyla, my 9-year-old daughter's in gymnastics. And we've got like a great day-to-day life. We live in Colorado. We've got a condo in the mountains. I get to ski a bunch. We can afford to go on vacations. We've got good friends in the neighborhood. I'm not like sort of looking for any sort of drastic change in my life. I've got it pretty good, like where I'm at the moment. I enjoy the people and the things that we do. For PlayerMaker, I hope things are way different. Right now it's me, and I'm hiring for the first 4 positions. And 5 years from now, that'll be post World Cup in 2026. I think there's like PlayerMaker has a massive opportunity to influence young players' development in a good way, and not because we measure how fast you run and how far you run. And like, I think that's a starting point that we can provide some unique value there. But I see it in the kids that I coach and that I wear it. It's great for engagement and motivation. Like they want to play soccer more and they want to get better. And that's like the starting point for anything. And I think we can layer on top of the measurement some insights and solutions that will like make them, sort of better players, and make coaches better coaches. And then I think with the individual players and with this sort of young players that are maybe training with team A on Monday and training with team B on Tuesday, and then maybe doing some individual skills training on Wednesday or with their high school or whatever, player maker can be this thing that if you like soccer, you put it on when you're 7 years old and you start doing it. And no matter which team you play for all the way through, you can sort of own your own journey. And I think that we can be like less of a measurement tool and more of like a platform and a solution, and to a certain extent a community. It's a slippery slope. I don't think we're going to turn into some sort of like social media channel, but at the same time, I think like individual player development plans and skill challenges, and like I'm happy to. I don't want my son on my phone ever. I don't like Adler like being on screens in general. They want to be on them too much, right? But I'm happy if he wants to grab my phone and look at the Player Maker app when we get done with practice, and he wants to do it every time. And so there's this communication channel that opens up between, and Man City's seen that by, sort of partnering with us, that opens up between these young players and us and the people that we partner with moving forward. So I think that I think some people can sort of look at Player Maker as like, is it a better or worse version of GPS? And it's like, for me, that's not the question. It's a totally different thing. We measure, we can do technical stuff, we can do tactical stuff, and we want to be something that's, if you're an aspiring young soccer player globally, my job for now is in North America, but like you want to have a Player Maker on, not just so you can see how fast you run or how many touches you have, but because it's like a great place for like inspiration and information for 7-year-olds all the way up to, 16, 17, 18-year-olds that are getting ready to go play in college or professionally. So that's what we're trying to create with Player Maker over the next 5 years. And I think the team before me has laid a great foundation. So it's my job not to screw it up.
No, I'm looking forward to the growth of it. So we have some quick fire questions. Do you still watch soccer now, or is it more like you're more focused on the business side? And if you do still watch, what's kind of your go-to team, your favorite team?
So teams I support are Minnesota United, because I grew up in Minnesota and sort of played, even though it's under a different name, that's sort of like my team that I played. That's why I got drafted by and played for in the beginning, and still know a bunch of the staff there. But also more recently watching more Premier League and Arsenal. And actually, like, one of my close friends is based in London, works in the football industry, and his daughter's a really talented player who's actually in the boys' academy at Arsenal, even though she's a girl.
Wow.
And she came across, their whole family came across last summer and brought like an Arsenal kit for my son Adler. So he started supporting that team. So now we watch a lot of Premier League and are rooting for Arsenal.
Perfect. And do you have a favorite quote or saying that you live by?
Yes. Life is not a dress rehearsal. That was someone told me that a while ago, and I think it's super true. Now, whatever your like religious beliefs or whatever happens beyond this, like, what I know is that like this opportunity is only going to happen one time. And so make sure you're making the most of it. I try and remind myself of that.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one. That's a good one. Do you have top recommendations so you're in Denver now, right?
Morrison, Colorado.
Oh, Morrison, sorry. But yeah, the general Colorado
so
area.
Denver, yeah.
Do you have top recommendations? Like, I'm a big foodie, so I like getting some recommendations on spots that I got to see.
Yeah. On the food side, what people sort of make fun of here is everybody likes to put green chili on everything, but it's pretty good. In terms of what's sort of unique about the area that I live in, so I live in Morrison, and if people have heard of Morrison, it's usually because of Red Rocks Amphitheater, the concert venue, outdoor concert venue. So my kids go to Red Rocks Elementary. They can like hear the bands warming up when they're playing outside at recess. We have a view of it like outside our deck, like on the backyard from a distance. Like, we can't like see the concert performers, but we can see the big rocks. And I'm not necessarily a huge live music person, but like, I've been to some shows since we've lived here over the last few years, and it is like a magical experience. I recommend it to be on anybody's bucket list, even if you're going to see don't go see music that you're not going to enjoy, but it doesn't have to be your favorite band. If you're sort of like even a little bit into the music, the experience of seeing a band play there is unreal. So yeah, Red Rocks is my recommendation.
All right. And then do you have a favorite book? Like, I'm not a huge reader, but I always like getting book recommendations just in case I have the chance to read.
Yeah, no, I've read and especially pre-kids, I was like a ravenous in terms of like how much sort of books that I read. So it's tough to nail down one, and there's tons sort of professionally, I think, that are good out there. On a personal level, I really sort of enjoy maybe Jon Krakauer and Michael Lewis. I've written a bunch of good books. So it's tough for me to nail down one, but that from an enjoyment perspective, I really enjoy Krakauer and Lewis, who sort of mixed, it's true stories, but told really well. So.
And favorite hobbies outside of soccer, like that you go with your family and you can do something, or just in general on your own?
Yeah, I still like to be pretty active. So like I said, we ski in the mountains. I love to surf. I do quite a bit of mountain biking and like golfing as well. So not so much of like the team sport stuff anymore, but I really enjoy those 4 things.
And in Colorado, you have access to a lot of different things.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you could sit down for dinner or a meal with one person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Well, life is so busy now. I think I'd say my wife. She was pretty awesome, and I really enjoy spending time with her. I think if I'm thinking a little bit bigger than that, then some of these gurus are pretty interesting, whether it's like Sadhguru or the Dalai Lama or like Archbishop Desmond Tutu, somebody like that I think is really sort of, coming at life from maybe a different perspective than the average American professional like myself. Would be an interesting conversation.
You're going to get good brownie points from your wife for that one. That's the first person that said their wife or their spouse, so I got to give it to you. That's good.
Yeah, well, my wife's awesome, so I lucked out.
No, that's perfect. So that's all I got for you. I always like to give people an opportunity to shout out what they're working on. So we've talked about Player Maker, but if you want to just give a last word, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sweet. Well, first of all, go on LinkedIn. We've got 4 jobs that are open at the moment and looking to hire good people. So check us out there. I'm headed down to SoccerX in Miami next Monday, Tuesday. So if anybody's there, feel free to sort of shout me out. And then we'll also be in the not too distant future at the United Soccer Coaches Convention out in California. So my project at the moment is, sort of building out Player Maker, and those are I can reach me in person at those 2 places, or reach out to us via LinkedIn if you have questions or are interested.
Perfect. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chad.
Wanna